So even though I'm still going to make some slight modifications, if I just look at the file name that's in the upper left-hand corner and it doesn't have my name in it, that's just because that's the name of that screenshot that I opened up. And what's scary about that is if the computer loses power, and I often forget to check my battery. In fact, I'm really low right now, right? Not too bad. Then I would lose all this work potentially, right? So we want to save. Really, as soon as we make an extra layer, we want to save as a PSD. So we go File, Save As, and we save it with our name. And then a description. This is exercise 2. This is my Popeye emoji. And where do we save it to? Always the desktop. If it's navigating somewhere else, you can hit Command D to get to the desktop. And what's the format? The format is Photoshop. Photoshop means a Photoshop document, PSD format. You do not type in the PSD, it puts it in there for you. Then you say save. And then you can check your desktop to make sure it got there. Here it is. I marked those are my working file formats, as green. Now I go back to it, and notice how I have my backgrounds turned off. Anything that's not a shape layer, I have turned off. So the onion skin on the top is turned off. The base layer on the bottom is off. You don't need to delete it, you just turn the eyeball off. And now if I want to submit this to Canvas, I'm going to say File, Save As, just like we did for our JPEGs. But this time we're not going to save it as a JPEG, we're going to save it as a PNG, right? Just like the emojis we exported from that website. But if we do Save As, and then it's going to the desktop, it has the right name, but we go to Format, there's no PNG there. What do we have to do? We have to say save a copy of it. That's because like a JPEG, a PNG is an online format. It's a lost compression format. It's going to lose quality. It's going to lose all the layers. But why are we using it instead of a JPEG? Well, a JPEG has to fill a rectangle. So if I save this as a JPEG, it would fill everything that looks like a checkerboard with white. But if I do it as a PNG, that can be empty and free floating, like a sticker. And that's how emojis are saved and used online. So now under Save a Copy, I'm going to find PNG, and it's going to, you don't need to type it, please don't, it's going to add it automatically after copy to the desktop with my name. Go ahead and use all the defaults. And now I can find that PNG, and I mark that orange for online format. So we've learned 2 online formats now, JPEG to fill the whole rectangle, and PNG to support what's called transparency. Just to demonstrate that really quick, if I double click on the PNG, it opens up in preview with a gray background. Even though it looks like it has a white background here, that's how we know that that background is transparent. And whatever background we put it on would show through. All right, now I can load that to Canvas, but we are actually turning in 2 things for Canvas for this. So I go to the unit module in Unit 3, or I go right to Assignments. And this way we can shortcut right to where we post things, where we post exercise 2. So we don't have to go through the introductions. I scroll down to the bottom of the directions. And we'll get better and better at this. I hit reply, I put my name, and I'll usually do something like instructor example. And then underneath my name, when my browser is at 100%, just so they're all formatted the same, I hit return after my name, so I'm on a line underneath. The first thing you're going to turn in is your screen grab, right? Or the PNG that you exported, one of those. I prefer the screen grab if you have it. But basically the emoji you made from the website to get started, just so we can see how you modified it or how you matched it. And I like the screen grab because that shows the background, right? You're going to make that small to fit underneath your name. Then I want you to make a bunch of spaces. And now larger, we're going to put that PNG in. And what's fun is trying to guess what your emoji is of. Now I'm going to shrink this down to be about half the window size at 100% so that it looks like this. So it all fits really nicely on the screen. Now we're going to try to finish this up. This is the PNG, yes. You don't put your PSD to canvas because it won't show up and it will take tons of memory. It will just show up as a link. Okay, but I still have some tweaks to do. So we can always go back to our PSD, which has all the layers, and we can do things like duplicate shapes, Command T, flip them horizontally, move them over, right? We can do all this stuff. Is there anything else I want to show you? Let me see. I'm just going to stretch this up a little bit. Bring that nose up. Anything else? I think I can make these a lot wider, so I'm going to select, hold down Command. Actually, I can get all of this. And hold down Command. Hold down Command T. I'm going to try stretching all of this bigger. So his chin is just so much bigger, right? I think that helps. I can even go bigger with it. Let's see. I can move it down a little. There we go. And then I'm just going to play with this a little bit. No, I think it can be fun just to guess, right? As we see them. If you want to write down what it's based off of. But that's why that's not a requirement. Because it can be fun to see if you're kind of just visual symbol, which is what emojis are, communicate. They can be obvious. Most emojis are, right? Mine is not going to be. Yep. All right, so now I kind of like how all the shapes are working, right? So I'm going to update my PSD just by hitting Command S, which you can also go to File and Save. The shortcut is Command S. That way, you don't need to go through the whole Save As thing because you've already named it, you've already put it in the right place. Command S will update it. And you can even see it in the icon, how now the chin's bigger there than it is there. So to save it as a PNG, again, what do? File. I don't need to go to Save As and then hit As a Copy. I can also shortcut by going to File, Save a Copy. So now that we've learned all this, you know you're always safe going to Save As, but you can shortcut by going to File, Save a Copy, and then go right to where you can save as an online format. It's going to ask if I want to replace the one I had. I do, because I've updated it. Remember, the background's turned off. And then how do I edit my post? I simply click on those three dots, delete it here, and bring in my new one. And then shrink it to be about half the screen size. Right. There we go. Okay, now that is what's called flat graphics. Flat graphics. If I wanted to play with Flat 2.0, this is the bonus finishing technique. It's shown here. This is the flat graphic. To change it to Flat 2.0, all you do is double click on your layers and you add what are called layer styles. They're like effects to your layers. So let me show you with the blue of his eye. I'm going to select that. I have auto select layer on to make it easy. That's the layer. Where it's highlighted, not on the title, because I don't want to rename the layer, I'm going to double click and I get layer styles. These work so beautifully with vectors. And what I'm going to do is make the eye a little bit more complicated. I'm going to add satin to it. And if I want to play with it more, I can click on that and modify these options, like how opaque it is, what color it is, what size it is. All of that, right? but that looks pretty good to me. Is there something else that could benefit from that? I can click on the nose, double click, click satin. And does that work? No, not quite so much. Maybe not satin. Maybe this time I play with a drop shadow on the nose. And then I open up the drop shadow and I say I want it from above and I want the drop shadow to be bigger, right? Kind of go out to the sides a little bit. And I want it to spread and I want its distance to be further so it's not at the top. And I want it to be a lower opacity. Again, I don't want it from the top. There we go. And maybe I want it to be kind of an orangish color instead of black. But notice I'm not making any new vectors. Instead, I'm just adding effect attributes to them. And they can be turned on and off. So you see this? There's a little eyeball. And they can always be modified. And then they'll be saved with your Photoshop file. Same thing with the hat. I think I'm just going to add a satin. Double click a satin to the hat. That's pretty nice. Maybe to the chin, just because the sides are so flat. Double click. I could try satin. I don't think that's going to work too well. Nope. But I can do what's called an inner shadow. And then I can change it so it's directional. And noisy. And just kind of texture it a little bit. And maybe make it so it's not black, but it's a dark kind of, or purple, but more like a dark skin tone. Like orangey. There we go. Now I like it, but I don't like how it's stopping right there. So maybe then I actually change my shape just a little bit. And grow this out and up. And then of course I can duplicate it. And move that same shape over. To replace, and just turn off the one that's obscuring it. Okay. Then what about for the mouth? I can try a drop shadow, but I can make the size a little bit less. So this is just playing with those layer styles and giving them some extra dimension. Can really make a difference to your project. It's not required, but it works beautifully, and they can all be turned on and off just by double clicking and using them. And you can even copy them amongst. So for instance, I could take what I used here, right click and say copy that layer style and paste it onto this one. Just that little shadow. And then I can paste it onto the ear. Paste layer style. Right? And then paste it onto this ear. Paste layer style. And then try to paste it onto this big shape. Yeah. Maybe even onto this. Let's see what this does. Just a little groove, and then onto the mouth. So if I paste it onto the mouth, it will replace the drop shadow, but I can always just add it. So it's just a satin effect, which just darkens around the edges. And then I might just texture the nose a little bit. So there's a texture feature. This is the most complex. You can add patterns, you can add textures. I like to use the water texture in the drop-down menu from what's already loaded, and then just make it scale really slight and make it pretty shallow. So it's just really subtle. But you have to watch the lighting direction. There we go. On the bevel and emboss. And I might add that to this as well.